So even though I love talking here in my office to you through the mic, I also am a relationship builder. So I love being able to have one-on-one conversations and just to have that real like in-person energy lights me up. Welcome to CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. I'm your host, Brandy Mabra. This is your one-stop shop to learn the business side of your practice on a deeper level. On this show, we empower you to own your CEO status to scale your practice for growth, sustainability, and profit. Listen in as we talk about how to market your practice to gain more visibility, hire, build, and engage your ride or die dream team, create streamlined operations, and make financial decisions as a CEO. It's time to show up as a confident leader to create a practice and life you love. Let's get started. Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. And I am so excited. I am so excited for this episode because this is me celebrating my 1 year of podcasting. Yay! Last week, which I did not even pick up on because I was vacationing in London, but it was 52 episodes, 52 episodes. And so there has been a lot that I've learned over the past year when it comes to this podcast. And so I wanted to share the 5 lessons that I've learned. And I think it's appropriate because anytime you incorporate a different type of tactic, marketing tactic, or way that you're putting your services out into the world, or how you're letting people know or helping people, there's always like some mindset things, some strategies, some opportunities, and things that are working well, things that are not working well. And so I wanted to talk about that today. I also thought that it was appropriate because if you were interested in actually starting your own podcast, because we do have clients who want to venture into that space. I know that there are people who come and ask me questions. I wanted to share this information because I think that we can all learn from each other's journeys. And so I'm here to help you learn from mine. And it's just been such a fun thing. I have wanted this podcast for 2 years before even starting it. And so my way of even stepping into it was starting with Instagram, right? So every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Eastern, I would show up live and talk about some type of business topic or leadership topic. And so that was my way. But I knew, because we titled it CEO Conversations, but I knew that it was going to turn into a podcast. I just didn't know when. So fast forward to this date, we are now a year in. I'm so excited for year 2 because the podcast is not going anywhere. This is going to remain a permanent part of how I interact with the community and interact with my audience because it's fun. It's fun for me. I know some of the comments when the podcast first start coming out, people are like, "Oh, that's that is totally you." For me, I am an introvert, and so for me to sit in a room and in my office and be able to talk and really get my message out there in a way that's in alignment, I show up. I definitely show up. And so, yeah, I feel so blessed to be able to sit here and I'm just appreciative. I'm so grateful for you listening, for the encouragement, for the nice words, for the, oh, I love that episode, the feedback that we get. So I get emails on the other side of the podcast where people are telling me I've made more money, I've hired, I'm showing up in my practice differently, I have had mindset shifts. And so just to hear that, it almost brings tears to my eyes. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry, but I'm just so grateful. The fact that it's 5 stars at this point in time, the reviews that we get is amazing, and it's just so good. But we're not done. We are not done yet. So we are diving into the next level of the podcast. So I'm so excited. And this was part of the vision when I first started. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about this, even with some of the lessons that I've learned. But the next step to this is we are now getting ready to do the podcast in person. So, yay. So, I'm going to be venturing into a podcast studio. So, I'm taking myself out of my office, out of behind my desk, and going into a podcast studio. So, I'm really excited about that. When I hired, because I had transitioned in team, and so one of the opportunities was for me to actually hire a podcast manager. With that hire, she has a very special skill set where that's part of the skill set. Her specialty is actually in person to be able to film and to kind of choreograph the episode. And so that's what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to be interviewing, people in person. So we're going to start to step into this month. And then we're going to venture over into YouTube. I don't even know what that looks like. And so this is kind of an involvement for me, my business, the message, how I'm going to be able to help folks. But I'm just excited because I'm a relationship builder. So even though I love talking here in my office to you through, through the mic, I also am a relationship builder. So I love being able to have one-on-one conversations and just to have that real like in-person energy lights me up, especially in an intimate setting. So yeah, so stay tuned. Stay tuned. I think what we're going to do is we're probably going to start off with me kind of talking. So you'll see some changes, even like on Instagram and how the content looks, which makes me excited. It definitely makes me happy. And you'll also start to see some guests and things too. Yeah, in a podcast studio. So stay tuned, stay tuned. But that's the involvement. That's the next level for the podcast. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the 5 lessons that I've learned when it comes to this journey. So, number one, consistency. I will say, because even at this point in time, I'm so sorry. At this point in time, my newsletter, I have Private Practice Scoop, which comes out every single week, and it's done that for the past couple of years. And I'll be honest, I'm going through a season. I am going through a season of getting busier. I had transitioned a team like I just mentioned, and this was at the start of Q2. Is so there's been a lot of things that have shown up for things I need to refine. And so I'm on the hunt for my last team member for this year, just to help me to bring some more structure to my day. And so one of the things that has kind of slipped through the cracks has been my newsletter. I'll be honest, like I'm going to be very transparent and I need help with that. So part of this hire is so I can get back on consistency when it comes to that. So if you have not seen Private Practice Scoop, I'm so sorry. But there is a lot of great additions that you can always go back and read, for sure. But that's one of the things. But with this podcast, baby, let me tell you, like it has to come out every single Friday, like without it just has to. Every single Friday, you have got to get an episode. Like, I can't just like, oh, nope, the email didn't go out. No, like this episode has to be there. People search for it. And I wasn't expecting that. People listen to it when they're walking, people listen to it when they're getting their kids ready, people listen to it just, doing other things at their desk. And so every Friday, something has to come out. But there's been times, and I've talked about this, where I've been sick and have not had an episode ready to go. Last week I was on vacation, so me and Kristen's my podcast manager, we're like, okay, well, we're going to repurpose an episode, because I had started to get like a cold and my throat was sore. And I tried to record and I just couldn't. It hurt, like my throat hurt and I needed to rest because I was getting ready to go on vacation and I was not going to be sick on vacation. But something had to come out on Friday. So we decided to air Robert's episode, which was an amazing episode. Robert is an amazing accountant, CPA, and even with that episode, it's always great for people to go back and re-listen. Not everybody listens to every single episode. It's actually a way to like re-engage people back into the podcast. And so it's something that the consistency is there. It's also taught me that it's okay. It is okay if I'm not creating everything from scratch all the time. And I know sometimes when it comes to marketing and just like this pressure that we put on ourselves just to recreate the wheel, and sometimes you don't have to do that, right? But you do have to be consistent. So no matter what, this podcast will air on Fridays. That is to be true. And so that's one of the things, is just the consistency. The other thing, just to piggyback off of that, which is my lesson too, it's also showed me some opportunities to refine my schedule. Part of this next hire is I've always had some type of person that kind of has been like an assistant type person, but this has really shown me I need a true executive assistant, right? And so my schedule right now is all over the place and I pride myself in time management. I work with our clients on time management. I have a very specific flow that I follow when it comes to my time management. I love the Eisenhower model when it comes to time management. if you're not familiar with that. It's more or less like urgent, less important, more important. Like you're really looking at things. Can I delegate it? Can I schedule it? Can I eliminate it? Is it really due today? Like type of thought process. And I follow that. I follow that to a T. That's something that I've followed when I first got into management. I was put through like practice management 101 when I first started working with healthcare systems and things. And I was really blessed actually to do that because a lot of the stuff I learned way back then is what I teach now because it's like tried and true best practices and principles. And one of them was that. So going through this process, trying to make sure that the podcast is consistent and then also, getting sick, having vacations, trying to make sure that we are working ahead so there's not this pressure of having to show up all the time with just like recreating like all these new episodes. I have to start batching, like, there's just no way, and so I've always heard word batching, and there's always, like, don't batch because if you batch, you lose your creativity, and I was just like, "Oh, okay," and that's another lesson that I'll dive into with the creativity part of it, but also when you're a busy entrepreneur, when you're busy and you're actually doing the work and you're actually helping people, and for me, I'm a very hands-on coach, so it's not like you come work with me and you're just kind of part of a membership just hanging out and it's very, passive. No, I'm very hands-on. I'm very active with my clients. And because of that, then I have to be very structured with my time, because I take that very seriously. I take that responsibility very seriously. So batching is something that really has come to light. And so for me to actually have to do back to back episodes, recording back to back. So that's part of the reason why we're even going into the podcast studio. So Kristen, my podcast manager, can hold me accountable to recording these back to back episodes because when they leave it up to me, I'm like, oh, yeah, that the podcast is going to come out on Friday. Let me record it, late Thursday. So that way it's there for Friday. It's not going to work. Like it's too much pressure. It doesn't work. And so that has been one of the biggest things that it has shed to light is the opportunities to refine my schedule, the opportunities to enhance my team, all of it. And so that has been a lesson for me. And so just being more intentional is probably the biggest thing. Lesson number 3 has been all about perfectionism. So I see this, in clients and where it's like the perfectionism, things have to be perfect before I can even put it out, whether if it's a post or if it's a video or if it's a newsletter or if it's just showing up and marketing your services or just marketing the practice. The perfectionism can definitely creep in and I am guilty of that. I did not know because over the past, I mean, I'm not new to this and I've been able to get past where like, okay, perfect or imperfect is better or what is it? Done is better than perfect is the saying I'm trying to think about. And so that's how I pride myself. There's sometimes where even like the newsletter will come out and there'll be like grammatical errors or something. And I've had to learn it's okay. It is okay. And that used to drive me crazy. And I'm like, it's okay. It's fine. I'm a person. I'm not a robot. I am a person. I'm a human being. We make mistakes. It does not mean that I'm dumb. It doesn't mean that I'm not educated. I have a master's degree. I like, no, it just means there's a grammatical error. Happens to everybody. But this podcast, let me tell you, like, it's brought back some of those, like the perfectionism feelings of it. And if you talk to anybody when it comes to podcasting, it's a long term, it's like it's a long game. Some people think that like, oh, I'm going to put out my podcast today and everybody and their brother is going to listen to it. And that's not the case. Like it takes time to build it. Like it takes years to build it. So if you're going to start it, you need to be in the school of thought that I'm going to start it, I'm going to build on it, I'm going to keep showing up, I'm going to be consistent with it. And if you are the type of person like me where like I'm looking for it to work or to like coming up with like the perfect topic, like all of those things started to come out in me and it was just very interesting. I was putting pressure on myself to have like the perfect episode. Also, sometimes when I talk, like I've told this story before, growing up, I had a really bad stutter. And when I talk for long periods of time, sometimes I'll trip over my words. I say sayings backwards. Sometimes words get jumbled in my head. And so when you're talking, when you're articulating, when you're in the microphone, sometimes I just get stuck. And so there were times in the beginning I would stop. Like I would be 20 minutes in recording an episode, stop and re-record the whole thing. Why? Because I stumbled over a word. And I haven't been that way for years. Like even with showing up on Instagram live, I would talk like if you go back on my Instagram, I mean you should go back on my Instagram because there's a lot of great information like in those lives. I would talk for, 20, 30 minutes just live. And it never occurred to me, but for some reason, just recording this, I literally would stop, re-record, restart, and I mean, it's just who has time for that? Nobody has time for that. And so I had to check it. Like, why am I doing this? The other thing is the data. So one of the biggest mindsets when it comes to marketing is you're not going to let your emotions control your marketing, right? So this is really big when you post something on social media. Maybe you don't get the amount of views you want, maybe you don't get the amount of likes you would like to see. It can play with your mental, right? Like it can play with you emotionally and make you feel some kind of way, which is warranted. But the data, so for me, I'm like expecting to have like these perfect episodes and to not mess up my words. And at this point in time, I have 100 million thousand, downloads. And that's unrealistic. That is so unrealistic. Like I can't put that much pressure on myself. It's a long game. It takes time. So at this point in time, we have thousands and thousands of downloads. There's five-star reviews. There's feedback I get every week. So I've had to really put myself in a position of what's true. Is it helping people? What are people telling me about it? People show up like, thank you so much just for recording it. Thank you so much for putting yourself out there. There's clients who are now working with me because of the podcast. So I had to really check the perfectionism and check the mindset that I was carrying into it and the amount of pressure I was putting on myself. So that was something I wasn't prepared for because again, I'm not new to this. I've been an entrepreneur now for years. And I've been putting myself out there in uncomfortable ways for years. So to actually have that come up for me, I wasn't prepared for that. So things are good now. Things are good now. So I know at this point in time what will happen is I'll continue to get better. Even going into the podcast studio, that's going to be uncomfortable. Me talking to a camera is going to be uncomfortable. Me trying to make sure I'm sitting up straight and not having, facial expressions, like all of those things, that's going to be uncomfortable, right? When I am excited to talk about is actually the guests in real life. That's going to be exciting. But that's still going to be different, right? And so there's a learning curve to everything as we're implementing new things and we're putting ourselves out there in different ways. But it requires practice. So for the past year that this podcast has been happening, it's been practice, right? It has been practice. And so that leads me to lesson number 4, stepping into the vision. So it took me 2 years before I started the podcast. I've been podcasting for a year. That's 3 years, right? And the whole vision of this has been to get into a studio, to be able to do exactly what we're getting ready to do. So the other lesson has been stepping into the vision and being patient with the process. We want to rush everything, myself included. If I could jump 20 steps to get to the end, like the vision that God's shown me, then and not go through all the fine print, all the obstacles, all the mindset shifts that have to happen, to all the lessons learned, like all this stuff. Oh, I totally would. I mean, put me at the end any day because the vision looks amazing. It looks beautiful. And that's what I want, and that's like the carrot that God puts out in front of us in order to get us to step in. He's not going to tell us by design everything that's going to happen in between. He's not going to tell us how he's going to mold us. He's not going to tell us what's going to happen to us, as we step into this purpose that he has for us and the vision that he's given us. He's just going to put us in the fire and be like, I got you, like, come on, it's okay, and you have, so with that, I've had to learn patience. I've had to learn it's okay for me to be on my journey. And when I see like some of these podcasts that are just so far along, there was a private practice podcast that I saw, and she's already at like 100,000 downloads. I was like, wow, that's so neat. That is just, wow, that's amazing. And I want to be there too, but I'm not there yet, but I will get there. I'm not there yet is definitely the sentiment here yet, but you have to be patient with the process. So going into this next year, that's why I've hired a more advanced podcast manager who can help me film in person. That was part of that hire, me stepping into that vision, but not being able to even utilize her services fully. Her services, I'll be honest, comes with the price point. And I have paid that price point, but I have paid that price point knowing that this vision is part of that, right? And that's going to help me to be able to help more people, make a better, bigger impact. More times than not, people are wanting to do more in-person things. So I'm hoping that that's going to be an attraction for really great guests to come on the podcast. I feel so blessed for the guests that we've already had. They've been so amazing. So to be able to have that in-person energy, I think is going to be just so fun. So just recognizing to be patient, to not come from a place of scarcity and appreciating the process, enjoying the process and appreciating the stepping stones truly to allow for me to learn and grow, right? And so when you are growing and scaling your practice, you have to recognize that it's a process, right? There is times and places for everything. And when people get into trouble in their practices because they jump to step 20 before they're ready, because they just want to be there or because it sounds good, but they're not truly ready for that. So remember, when you move slow, when you move with intention, that's going to serve you. That's actually doing you a favor. It allows for you to learn where you're at. It allows for you to kind of get a awareness of what's going on compared to putting yourself in a situation that maybe you're truly not ready for, right? God always gives us exactly what we need for the season that we're in. I love that saying. And it's so true. It is so true. And so at this point in time, I'm in this journey. I'm 1 year in. I know I'm not done yet. I'm getting ready to go into year 2. I'm excited to see what's going to be in that, but I also too know that there's going to be some additional lessons I need to learn. I'm going to have to still be patient with the process, but I'm excited. I'm excited. So coming from a place of abundance compared to a place of scarcity is so important. And just recognizing you'll get exactly to where you need to go if you just trust the process. Which brings me to lesson number 5. So being in this area of just podcasting, I'll say, the creativity that is required. There's creativity that is required. There's creativity when it comes to marketing in general. I am creative, but I've had to step into that creativity, and then I've had to step into being willing to put myself out there. And one of the things I've recognized is my creativity doesn't happen at my desk. And I think this is an important conversation to have from a couple of different dynamics. People, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to your vision, you need to put yourself in spaces to be creative, right? And so I remember when I first started my business, I had a lot of business experience. I have almost 2 decades worth of business management, leadership, multi-million, I mean, all the things, but I've always been spoiled and I've always had a marketing person. Always, 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 always. And or someone telling me what to do with the practice when it came to marketing. So when I got into my business, I was like, "Oh, wow, I don't have a marketing person. I'm the marketing person. How's this going to work?" So fast forward, I'm actually very proud of myself. I mean, we are what, almost 11,000 followers on social. I think in our eco space we have over maybe close to 15,000, I think, in like eco space between email and yeah, like between email, Instagram, all the places that we are. So to build that type of audience, and that's consistency. That takes time. That means that for years I've shown up and it's taken some creativity too, to gain the audience. We get compliments on the content. But even with the email newsletter, just showing up, that takes creativity, right? And so one of the things I've recognized with this podcast, particularly having to come up like, okay, what am I going to talk about this week? I can't do it sitting at my desk. I have to do it in other ways. So I'm creative when I'm in the shower. I'm very creative when I'm in the car. I'm creative when I'm walking. I'm creative when I'm on vacation. I'm creative when I am just out and about, not in my office. So this is why what this has taught me and what has solidified for me, you have to take yourself away from your desk. You cannot like if you are just sitting there grinding it out at your desk in front of your laptop or computer or just all day every day. I don't care if you're virtual setup or if you're a brick and mortar. Get out. Get out, get away, step away for so many different reasons, not just creativity when it comes to, for this instance, podcasting or just marketing or social, or no, just creativity for the vision that you have, right? So the whole goal of a CEO and the main purpose is to set the vision, to set the mission, to dictate where is this ship going? Where is the business going? That's your whole job, especially when you have a team. Your team needs to know, what are you thinking? What's like, and you have to have the clarity for that. You cannot do that. And this has solidified this for me. You cannot do that if you are just grinding it out every day at your desk. I mean, maybe the like kind of the bro marketing people might say, no, 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 you gotta, you don't sleep. You can sleep when you're dead. Not in my boat. I have to get away. And when I get away and when I'm doing other things, that's when all the ideas come. That's where I'm like, oh, that would be a really good conversation. Oh, I can talk about this. Oh, I can start to bring this service into my business. Oh, maybe I could do all of that happens when I'm not here. When I'm not sitting down. It always happens outside. Most times when I'm at my desk, I'm so convoluted with what's happening in front of me. So get away, get away. And that has been the best thing. And even with us moving to a podcast studio, part of the reason why we're doing that is to help me get away. Right. So that way I can get away, I can step into a different space, I can put my brain around what needs to happen, and I'm not distracted. I'm not distracted by all the other things that I could potentially do. Even as I'm recording this, there's a laundry list of things that I could potentially work on if I want to, but I need to record this podcast. So that's what my focus is. But it's more or less, it's kind of been low on the totem pole, but it's consistency. I have to be consistent because something has to come out. But the way that I'm doing it needs to be refined. So that's part of the reason why I'm even stepping out. So that way I'm able to step out. I'm able to have that creative energy. I'm able to, definitely put myself in a space of thinking compared to a space of doing. And because you need thinking time, not just doing time, it's all intentional. It's all intentional. So, yeah, so those are my 5 lessons. So, again, consistency, opportunities to refine my schedule and even to enhance my team, the realness of perfectionism in me, and even some insecurities that have come out during this past year. The ability and the importance of stepping into the vision, but being patient with the process. And number 5, putting yourself in an actual space where you can be creative and to take the pressure off are the 5 lessons that I've learned. And so I just want to say thank you again so much just for being with me on this journey. And I do have an ask. So at the beginning, I said, I'm thankful we have 5-star reviews, but I do have an ask. So I need help. So I want to help more people. The whole reason why I started this podcast was because I wanted to bring a different voice to the private practice space. I wanted to bring my voice because my voice is needed. I know even with me being a Black woman, it's needed. It's a different perspective. Because I am not a practitioner, my whole focus is the business side. I have a clinical background, but even over, like, I've had a couple of calls over the past, like sales calls and discovery calls and things. And one of the things that I've heard is a lot of times when you put yourself in spaces where it's like the same type of person, same type of specialty, there's no difference. They're just echo chambers, right? And for me, I love different types of business models. I've been in different type of business models. I've worked in different type of specialties. And I used to feel, I'll be honest, I used to feel insecure about that. And like, well, maybe I'm not appropriate for this space. But actually, it's because my whole focus is just the business side. That's my expertise. That's the gift that God has given me. That's the experience that God has given me in order to be able to help and in order to be able to, even with some of our clients tripling their revenue or showing up more as an empowered leader or not closing down their business. Um, I'm sorry, not closing down their practice. I want to help more people. I need to help more people. So this podcast is a way to do that. And, but it needs reviews and it needs 5-star ratings in order for it to even get out to people. So if you could please leave a review or leave a 5-star rating. That would be I would be so grateful for that. And if you could also email us the 5-star review or the review or the rating or whatever. If you could just send it to info at savvyclover.com. The email is going to be in the show notes. Then for the first 5, I wish I could do it for everybody, but the first 5 who do that, then we'll go ahead and set up a own your CO status call. So if you are having questions or maybe some obstacles or something that you need help with in your practice, then you can get a one-on-one with me, because again, my whole purpose for this is very mission focused. I'm very purpose driven. Also, I know I'm not cheap to work with. So I hope that you will run to this opportunity, not walk, but run. So that way, again, my whole goal is to be able to help people, to be able to, for you to have a practice that is sustainable and profitable. And I know that not everybody can work with me, but I know this podcast is definitely a vehicle for people to get transformation inside of their practice. And so I just want to get more eyes on it. So I'm sorry to cry, but just if you could help me with that, I would be so grateful. So again, thank you so much for thank you so much for just listening. Thank you so much for the kind words. It truly is amazing. So thank you. Okay, I'm going to end. So I'll see you guys next week. Thank you. Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the episode and it empowers you as the CEO of your practice. If you enjoyed the podcast, please make sure you subscribe, share the message, and leave a review. If you want more information and support in growing and scaling your practice, click the link in the show notes to take advantage of our free resources or apply to work with me directly. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.